Classical Theories of Organizational Communication by Elijah Salazar. Before getting into classical perspectives, we first need to be able to define theory. So theory, when focused on an organizational structure, is analyzing aspects such as optimal organizational performance plans, organizational power relationships, and compartmentalizing different organizational units. And to understand communication, we need to be able to understand theories. The book defines a theory as a group of related propositions designed to explain why events take place in a certain way. Interestingly enough, in Greek, translated, it means contemplation or speculation, which gave me an easy way to remember that theory, in a sense, is to contemplate on something being speculated. The book gives an example of a theory being Isaac Newton's theory on gravity, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. An apple drops, and his theory is to explain what force is to bring it to the ground or why it falls. Through this, he created the theory of gravity for the reasoning of why something falls. So we see through this example that theory created a solution for a problem that was not yet solved. Through this, we see that theories are metaphorical and historical due to the period in time they were created. Moving into our next point, classical theories, interestingly enough, the book refers to industrialization and the fact that it dates back to 1750 due to the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, you see people leaving their farms for the first time and entering some sort of workforce organization. Agriculture, manufacturing, mining, technology, and transportation altered the culture of the 1750s. The classical perspective during this time were that working organizations were to be ran like machines. Until about the 1900s, all organizations ran as if it was a well-oiled machine, and every part of the machine needed to be running in tip-top shape to create a productive product. In 1913, Frederick Taylor issued in a complete different method called Frederick Taylor Scientific Management, which gave the idea that the organization should reflect its management. The book defines this method as a management-oriented and production-centered perspective of organizational communication. His theory was broken down basically by analyzing the job, finding the best way to do the job, finding the best person to execute the job, then train that person to do the job the right way. Frederick Taylor, through his management theories, was then able to create time and motion calculations, which is recording outcomes and time to produce those outcomes. Frederick Taylor also felt that managers needed to communicate clearly and candidly. Further, employees did not need to provide input, they just needed to know how to execute their jobs, which was quickly adapted by many other organizations as well. Over time, we see a lot of backlash from employees that came from this, though. Max Weber was a primary influence on the idea of bureaucracy in the workplace, and Weber's definition of bureaucracy applied to the workforce. It refers to selecting authorities based on criteria and standards, rather than popularity or family relations, which in turn makes organizational decisions harder to execute, but it also protects workers from mistreatment because there is order and structure to the communication. In the example shown in this table, we see that Weber's types of authority are based on rules and actions. The specialization of the employee is who is most technically qualified, the hierarchy representing the authority, the leadership succession, finding out who is most appropriate for the position, communication in terms of what is written and how it has numerous records, and how the employee is viewed as systematic in the organization. In Weber's types of authorities, this helped do away with the ideas of nepotism, preferential treatment, prejudice, and discrimination. So an employee would be picked based off of their knowledge and performance of the job or task at hand. Henry Fayol was another theorist that believed organizations needed to be a division of labor, hierarchy, and fair practices. He believed there needed to be unity across the board within an organization. He structured his management ideas based off of unity of direction and command, authorities, ordered establishment, subordinates also striving for one goal, not just the organization, and an order to which communication is transferred across the organization. Through this, we see that classical perspective has two functions, control and command. Fayol believed that organizations must limit their communication to create a sense of control. In all three theories, we see that theories help us understand and predict communication and behaviors throughout organizations, and the importance of communication and the power it brings and takes from an organization, all the way from the top to the bottom. In our next topic of discussion, human relations theories, we see that towards the end of the 1900s, we transition into the human relations theories, where we get away from this machine working mentality to mentality based upon the welfare of the worker. For the first time, workers were viewed as an important part of the organization. This was a huge milestone because for the first time, two-way communication was being established and encouraged, which was communication between a worker and some kind of management or authority. The human relations concept was then used as a tool to manage their subordinates to get them to cooperate through communication. In relation to now management having some kind of communication with employees, we see Elton Mayo taking advantage of this as he did a series of experiments in human relations to test what increased the most productivity. In his series of studies, he first examines an illumination study, which is increasing and decreasing light in a work environment to test how productive employees are due to the conditions of the environment. He also did a relay assembly study, which manipulated workers to test their fatigue and productivity, as well as an employee interview study, which basically allowed an employee to interview with some sort of authority figure who would take notes but would not give feedback. He also did a bank wiring observation study, which consisted of 14 employees working with the pay incentive that was removed. In conclusion, workers' behaviors were affected by the attention they received rather than by the other variables such as lighting or temperature or changed work environment. Once workers felt as though they were being noticed or recognized, it influenced their productivity. Group norms were also affected. This also was defined as the Hawthorne's effect. Through these studies, Kurt Lewin was able to identify the fact that workers want to have a voice and provide input about their tasks, and helped organizations realize the benefits of group formations, development, and attitudes. He also influenced future organizational communication theorists by emphasizing the importance of communication. On the other spectrum, we have human resources theories, which the prime idea is the task of management should be the creation of a working environment that fosters employee creativity and risk-taking in an effort to maximize and tap into the resources employees bring to the job and include both management and workers. Raymond Miles defined differences between human resources and the human relations. He based the two groups off of management, of how managers interpret and apply various ideas or various innovators, and how they view the worker. He then broke the groups up into decision-making and motivation. The motivational theory is based off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which suggests that there are certain levels of human motivation and each level must be met before moving to the next level. Through this, we see that our needs are broken down into 5 major categories, which is physical needs, safety needs, love and affection and belonging needs, self-esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. We then move into Frederick Herzberg's hygiene theory, which is the idea that motivation on the job should lead to satisfied workers, and that you can differentiate what motivates and demotivates a worker in complete different categories, which are motivators, which is a positive outcome for an employee, and hygiene factors, which would be a negative impact or a demotivator on an employee. Lastly, we have Douglas McGregor's X and Y theory, which is solely management dependent and believes that the outcome of an employee depends on the manager's perception. To elaborate, the Y theory manager feels that people want to do what is best for the organization and can direct themselves under the right conditions. This approach also is similar to the human relations approach, in the perspective that managers believe that people want to succeed and they can excel if given the right circumstance to be creative. The X theory manager is one who believes that most people do not like to work. Workers are not smart or creative. This approach is similar to the scientific management approach, where workers are expected to only work and require constant supervision. In an application to an educational background, which is where I am employed, I believe that Douglas McGregor had a great idea where theory Y managers feel that people want to do what is best for the organization and can direct themselves under the right conditions. I agree with this because I think that where the head goes, the body follows. So ordinarily, where the management leads the employees is where the employees will follow. That is my summary of Chapter 2 and what I learned. I hope you also learned something. Thank you and have a blessed day.